We would like to welcome you to this webinar on the topic of leadership transitions from siblings to cousin and among cousins. My name is Pascal Michaud, and I will be leading this webinar together with my colleague Andres Maldonado.
Hello, Andres Maldonado here. Very happy to be with you virtually.
Thank you, Andres. So welcome everyone. This Family Enterprise webinar is organized into three parts. We will first look into leadership transitions in today's world for systems of sibling to cousins and among cousins. We will then look at your personal engagement and development path if you're part of a family enterprise, and what happens when you are undergoing leadership transition. What happens to you then? We will then look into the steps you could address now in your system to succeed at effective transition. And we will have a Q&A session at the end where we will gather all your questions during the webinar and we'll address them towards the last 20 minutes of the webinar. To ask questions that we will answer at the end, please click the button at the bottom, the Q&A button. Thank you. We will send the slides to all participants via email tomorrow as well. So let's begin. We will first talk about the first topic, leadership transitions in today's world. In fact, when we think about leadership transition in family enterprises, we really think about several transitions taking place concurrently, each at a different pace. It's not only one transition, for example, the CEO succession, but it's several transitions. And sometimes some of them are not as visible because they're under longer term periods of time, but they are as important, and we have to really understand what's going on among all of these different transitions because they do impact one another. So over time, of course, entire groups will transition. Our business leaders, our family leaders, our management teams, our ownership groups, our board of directors, our committees, our councils. But our systems will also evolve, our leadership systems. And this is one of the topics we want to talk to you about today. We will talk about multiple transitions often occurring at the same time, but at a different pace. And we will also talk about the changes that are undergoing into the leadership system in the dimensions of ownership, business, family, and wealth. And we will also talk about how all of this influences the way we make decisions and how we communicate together and how we coordinate together as a large family enterprise. You know, more and more we see that families like to address succession and transition through team approaches. And we will show you how some of these transitions occur now. They're less linear, they're less precise than they used to be. Sometimes they're a little bit more kind of interactive and they're constructive. So we will talk about the different kinds of transitions and what are the implications. So we think about transition in our leadership system and also in our leaders. All of this, of course, needs to be anchored in our values. This is how we will be able or not to make a transition occur if we think it is really aligned with our strong beliefs and our fundamentals in terms of how we see ourselves functioning, the kind of aspirations we have, and the kind of priorities we have for our system. So transition in our leadership system and transition in our leaders. Now, it's very important to always remind ourselves of the kind of transition we're addressing and how we're addressing them. Sometimes, for example, in the ownership circle, we will have transition of the voting shares at a pace that is entirely different from the succession of our key leaders. And they all influence one another. Oftentimes, all of these different roles are connected into a few individuals. And as soon as we start transitioning some of these roles or some of these activities, we kind of undo a system that was well-oiled, and we have to recreate a new system to make it work. So today, leadership transitions occur in an environment that have much more moving parts. The changes happen at a higher speed. And many of the moving parts have changes at higher magnitude, which means that the transitions are not as calm, as organized as they used to be. And we have to be able, therefore, to unlock old patterns faster and shape new routines on the go. And that's not easy to do. Oftentimes, just understanding what are our current patterns, how do we make decisions, how do we communicate together, What do we value? It's often hard to even understand what it is today. So how can we unlock them and create new routines on the go is quite demanding. And the families that succeed best at transitions are the ones who are able to cultivate high emotional IQ. This is absolutely important in today's world. So what kind of transitions do we see happening, or do we assist in our own work? Well, of course, on the left side, we have what we call the elegant and ceremonial transitions, where over a number of years, most of the time, with high degree of planning and synchronicity, or as much synchronicity as we can, we will have all of our different building blocks and all of our different leadership roles gradually transition with a lot of awareness, a lot of communication in a way that's well thought through and in a way that makes the system still survive. This is a process-driven approach. It's a nice way to address increasing complexity, but a lot of families nowadays are also asking us to work more in a kind of hub-driven approach. It's collaborative, it's iterative, maybe it's the new trends we're facing. For the past 20 years, we've been an open source model kind of design. This is influencing the way we think and we do things in life. Our millennials also have a different view of leadership. So there are new leaders, and our leaders to be might also have a different view of how to transition systems. And we have a lot more internal shocks and external shocks. So we have to adjust much more rapidly. In these hub-driven system, we really focus much more on the outcome, not so much on the detailed process. The process will be redefined on a regular basis, but we need to have strong alignment around our goals and a very high degree of communication for these less planned, less iterative transitions to take place. In this case, trust is fundamental, and if we have some challenges over trust, it will be quite difficult to run into the emergent and ongoing. Many families nowadays will try to do both, a hybrid between the elegant and ceremonial with a high degree of planning and synchronicity between the different building blocks changing in our system, but with some part of the hub-driven or emergent approach. So we're transitioning in our leadership systems, and we're transitioning in our leaders, and we'll look a little bit more into what that means. Now, in our leadership system, there's at least 3 major blocks that we have to tackle every time we think about transitioning. One is our wealth creation engines. How are we creating wealth and preserving wealth together? And of course, this is financial wealth, but it's also the other kind of social and family wealth and other forms of wealth that we can think of. So our wealth creation engines, the assumptions underlying the way we create wealth as a family enterprise, will evolve. So that's a very important awareness process to really think about how do we create wealth, how have we created wealth so far, how have we potentially destroyed wealth, and how we can create wealth moving forward in our new environments. The second very important topic of leadership system transition is really what we will keep doing together, what we call the togetherness factor, and what we will decide to do individually. So that might be the way we own shares together. It might be the way we own intellectual property. It might be the way we nurture networks of relationships. Sometimes we feel that we need to do some of these more into an individualized way, by branches, by groups, by generations. Another time, we think that we should continue as a whole group. So thinking through our transition, what is the degree of commonwealth that we want to preserve is a very important question. The third important topic is our whole governance design. Our modes and structures of decision-making, coordination, and communication might be today really productive and efficient for the system we have. But as we transition our leadership system and its components, and also our leaders, most of the time we have to readjust the way we think and act around governance. So that's for our leadership system. We also have transitions in our leaders and their key roles. We have at least 3 types of important leaders, and more than that, but we're focusing on 3 today. So we have our economic leaders, the ones who are really capable of bringing a lot of financial revenues and wealth. Sometimes it's one individual, sometimes it's a small team. The same for the family unity leader, the people who are really keeping us connected with a meaningful project as a family enterprise. Again, sometimes it's one person, sometimes it's a small team of people. And then we have what we call our system architecture leaders, the one who really try to really foresee how to connect our different building blocks, the number of companies, the number of organizations, the number of boards we might need, whether we need a family office, is it a single family office, how do we need to evolve those different parts of our systems? This is what we call our system architecture leaders, and they're so important. Their role is not always very clear, but once you start looking into the kinds of support they provide, it becomes really clear that their role is even more important during the transition phases. So let's look into a couple of examples of how we transition our leaders, just using these three types of leaders. And again, there's more than that in our system, but let's just look into these ones. We might have a very stable system today with a complex transition ahead. Why would that be? Well, typically when we have a solid leader, when we have one person at the center of our system who is our economic leader, is also our family unifier, and he's also the person thinking through the different blocks of organizations and forums that we need. This is going to be a complex transition because that equilibrium today is really all tailored to that person. And there's a lot of implicit decision-making processes. There's a lot of implicit codes of conducts and routines and behaviors. And we have to kind of unlock those different roles to see how we can each transition those roles. Maybe not to the same individual. We might need now more than one individual to play the role that this person played so far. We might have another example of what we call a bumpy equilibrium or a punctuated equilibrium. That requires also a very careful transition ahead, because in this case, we might have, for example, one person who's our economic leader and also our system architecture leader, someone extremely capable, a thinker doer with a lot of energy, lots of success. But that person is almost too much for the system. And people are kind of worried that this will be the CEO of our lives. And therefore, they try to really connect differently around a different kind of family unity leader, someone who's softer, perhaps with even higher emotional IQ for the kinds of relationship we need in the family, or the kind of patience that this requires. And when we have such system, oftentimes the family unity leader is an unspoken and formalized role. And we might be hitting a couple of quite important roadblocks because we're not completely aligned around values, with each person invoking values to help the system transition, but they will invoke the same values with different stories behind to support their points. So this is a complex transition, and when we are facing those, we really have to stop, reflect, communicate, clarify things before we move too fast ahead. Another example is when we have a very capable and successful economic leader, but then everything else in those important roles we've talked about, the family unity leader and the system architecture leader, is really driven by another person. So it's almost as if we had ongoing tensions between an entrepreneur mindset and a system mindset. And in such cases, the transition might be accompanied by a system split. Either we buy, sell shares, and we form different groups because we really can't reconcile the view of a very agile, nimble, simple system with the view of a system that requires more structure because of its complexity. So we might split ownership, we might split leadership of roles, but there will be a tension that needs to be solved. And again, these situations take time. So as we're transitioning our leadership system and our leaders and their key roles, we really have to stay very clear about what are the change drivers that are the most important ones. We have some external pressures. COVID-19 right now is one of these very, very loud and colorful pressure that drives almost everything. And we also have some internal imperatives. We might have people who need to transition. They feel that the fatigue in their body, or the system might think that we need a different kind of leader now for different parts of our system. And therefore, being clear on those change drivers is essential. We are often asked, should we wait for our transition during COVID-19? And we think not. It is better to continue with the process. You might pace it and sequence it differently, but you should not stop it because there's a major external pressure really pushing the system. Now, how complex is your system today? This is a very nice starting point to think about, okay, we are in a transition, or we expect a transition of some parts of our system. And the best way to start is to really think, where are we? To raise our consciousness, our awareness of who we are today, and how complex is our system today before we even begin to transition some of these building blocks and some of these roles. So let's think about low complexity versus high complexity. And let's just think about 4 factors for now. There would be more. But just try to position yourselves. Are you in a system of ownership where the ownership is highly concentrated in a few owners? Or is the ownership diluted among several branches or several owners? Do you have a financial wealth creation model that is relatively simplified in the sense of one operating company or single family office? Or do you have multiple businesses in multiple industries? Maybe you have different asset classes, operating companies and investments, and maybe you're into many geographies. So that's another level of complexity. What about the family? Do you have a small family at this stage in the enterprising family with few branches, highly united, low geographic dispersion? Or do you have a more complex systems with multiple branches, many members, and you might be a fragmented or dispersed family geographically? And what about governance? How is your decision-making system today, and how do you coordinate and communicate together? Is it quite formal and quite functional through very well-defined policies, forums, and mechanisms? They don't need to be very heavy. They could be extremely agile, but we know how we function. Or is it more like we have little structure, it's quite informal, it's quite implicit. For now, it serves us well, but we don't know how to address changes with that kind of implicit system moving forward. So these are already 4 dimensions that you should think about, because they will influence whether you can do an elegant and highly synchronized transition, or whether you will have to have some ingredient of hub-driven kind of dynamic in your system. And again, how is your leadership system organized today? Are you in a solar system, which will require probably a longer and more delicate transition? Or do you already have a large number of leaders and with a highly institutionalized system? In this case, it's great, but sometimes we have to undo things. We have to clean things that have become heavy over the years. Maybe we have too many policies. Maybe we have too many forums. Maybe we need to simplify in many different ways, including in our investments and businesses. So in fact, each system has its pros and cons, and it has its difficulties when we begin transition. The left side will allow us and require from us to really untangle all the different roles in the solar leader and to create new patterns and a new system that will be viable with the transition. And on the right side, we might need a little cleaning, and we might need a little simplifying and really identifying some of the old patterns that are really keeping us behind, that we have to evolve in order to make our transition and to reach our goal properly. So to summarize so far, before I hand the microphone to my colleague Andres, we're saying that a family enterprise leadership transition is typically characterized by several transitions taking place concurrently, each at a different pace. When we transfer ownership and voting rights, it might be over a very long time period, at the same time as we might go through a CEO succession, which will take place in 2 to 5 years. So we have different pace, different considerations, but we need to understand these different transitions and to connect them to have a higher chance of succeeding in the transition we're doing. Number two is you need a talent bench for both leaders and leadership system. You have to keep reinventing yourselves. There are major changes happening everywhere, and the systems that are stuck are the ones who have not really raised enough awareness, have not done enough scenario planning, and have not stopped to really think through how are they creating wealth or destroying wealth. Number three is the more complex your system is, the more you need a thoughtful and carefully designed leadership transition. You really have to take your time. You can still have important milestones achieved quickly, but you can't think that the overall transition can happen on a dime. And last, do pace yourselves. Prioritize and sequence changes in leadership, really based on the goals that you're trying to achieve. And do not bypass important reflection and conversations. This is the key to everything. You know, we all have this saying, the elephant in the room. Well, in transition times, if we don't identify and raise awareness of these elephants in the rooms, which might be in our leadership systems, which might be in our leaders or their roles, if we don't highlight them properly, we will miss important reflections and conversations that will catch up later on and will not make our transition effective or really possible. So I'm giving the microphone now to my colleague, Andres Maldonado.
Thank you, Pascali. Well, welcome to section 2, in which we will address how each one of you, with your particular roles and interests, could engage with your family enterprise system given the leadership transition. Pascal has given us the system view. Now we're going to deep dive in how each one of you can participate in this transition. Okay? Okay. We have found that there are 4 archetypes on sibling and cousin consortiums. And I ask you to please make a mental note on which archetype best describes you, as we will give you some recommendations on that specific archetype in the following slide. So first of all, Mario is an owner, he's a business leader, he's a key decision maker. He is also a wealth creator and is ready to transition leadership into the next generation. So think about if you're Mario in this system. Then Aurora is an owner, a family member. She is not active in the family enterprise system, but she is financially dependent on the dividend. So think if you are Aurora. Ernesto is a next gen. He's still not an owner. He has some participation in business and governance currently, and he has the ambition to become a significant business and governance leader, right? He's a next-gen guy. And then Andrea, she is next-gen, still not an owner. She has her own entrepreneurial venture. She's deeply connected to the family, but she's living her own life abroad, right? So think on which of these 4 archetypes best describes you, because we're going to get into how you need to engage with the system and sort of what your development path should be. As you can see, the closeness and interest of each family, of each of these 4 archetypes in the family enterprise system varies significantly, but each needs their space in which to be informed and participate. Also, they need to develop minimum capabilities to be good members in their respective future roles given the leadership transition. Okay. So now let's see how each one of you, given your selected archetype, could engage with the family enterprise system given the transition. So Mario, he should set up the leadership transition process and provide it with the financial and human resources to make it successful. He should also invite and very importantly, welcome the next generation to actively participate. And he also needs to start transitioning his roles. In other words, he needs to provide the means and in this process, start stepping aside. Then Aurora, given this transition, she should support and promote Mario's transition as only a sister can, right? Invite and attract next gen to participate in the process and continue to promote family love and unity and the adherence to family values for the future. Now, Ernesto, he should promote making his cousins assemble into a true team, probably with a leadership style different than the previous generation had. He needs to be more collaborative and open, and he also should help Mario, his father, carry through with the leadership transition and open up the spaces. He should show Mario some tough love. Father, great that you're doing this. You need to move. You need to step aside in time. And he also needs to act sort of like the manager of the PMO. He needs to support this transition process. Then let's go to Andrea. Andrea should support and be part of the cousin team and building this capability for them to act as a team. She should help her branch carry its weight and support the leadership transition. And she also needs to be an active participant in unifying the family. So Ina, please, super. Please went to the main screen. Okay, so as you can see, all archetypes need to engage and promote the family unity, and they should show the openness and generosity to transition the leadership. Okay, so what are the actions that you could take towards the transition in each one of these roles? So if you are Mario, you need to understand how to be an ownership leader of the future, which in many ways is different from being an active business leader. He needs to understand the new tools and ways to engage to allow the system to flourish. And he also needs a relevant role in the future in which he's able to add value without having to lead the day-to-day. So Mario needs to learn about how to be an owner different from a business leader. Aurora should be familiarized with the key elements of being an active owner so that she can understand the information received and invite her children to develop their own capabilities. So she's key in bringing on the next gen. Ernesto should develop his self-awareness and understand how to participate and lead his cousin consortium, and also develop his business leadership capabilities for the future role. Finally, Andrea needs to be a good active owner and develop her teamwork capabilities with her. As you can see, each one of you needs to understand how to develop your capabilities to be a productive member of your family enterprise system. To finalize, we welcome you to section 3, in which we will give you practical advice on the steps that you can take to address the leadership transition in your system based on our experience from working with several family enterprise systems and research conducted by the Cambridge Family Enterprise Group. So if we go to the next step, the first step will be understanding your family enterprise system on a systematic way, right? And that implies first, start by understanding the challenges you're facing, which depends on the complexity on the system and how do you want to pace and sequence this leadership transition, right? So really understand what is the size of the challenge. Number 2, understand and diagnose the talent and capabilities that you have on the family side and on the organization to really take on with the process. What are the families and key leaders? Who are they? What do they want for the future? What is the culture and organization like? What are the gaps to be closed? And finally, engage the key talent of family members and executives to participate and support the leadership transition process. This is a human process, so you need to get the humans on board, right? So that first, understand your system. And then when you understand your system, its talent, its capabilities, its gaps, you can initiate your leadership transition process. And for illustration purposes, we've outlined in this next slide the potential approach. So this approach that we're showing here starts by first defining a structured leadership transition process, which could involve defining an aspiration and a vision strategy for the next 10 years. It can also go into defining the future leadership and wealth creation model, which addresses also what my colleague Pascal was telling us in the first section. It needs a clear transition process and a structure to guide that process, and then anchor those process in values. Then you need to set up forums so that the people that are moving from their current leadership positions have a relevant space in which to participate, but open up spaces so that others are able to join. So that could come in the form of creating an owners council. Then the next generation also needs to set up their team to build and practice their capabilities of teamwork. And you may need other forums to accommodate people that are very important for the transition. And then third, once you have the forums and a structured process, you can start your own transition in which you have new business leadership slowly moving into place. You also have ownership leadership established and moving into place. And you have your next generation involved in practicing their new team dynamics. One thing that is absolutely key in this process is to communicate, which is at the bottom of the process, and that based in our experience, communicating is absolutely key to improve the odds of having this effective leadership transition in which your family enterprise system can thrive, keep united, and enjoy for the years to come.
Andres and I were pleased to be with you today. We hope that we shed some light on some of the issues that you're addressing, and it will be our pleasure anytime to continue this dialogue. It's our passion, it's our life, and we hope that we brought a little bit of light to your questions today. It was a pleasure for us. Andres? Yes,
thank you so much for watching us. I've noticed that you made around 40 questions, so we will make sure to read them all and understand what are the key things in your mind, because that's very helpful for us. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for attending. And hope we meet you somewhere in the future. Our life path will cross. Keep safe and be good.
Keep safe and healthy. Thank you.